At exactly 34 seconds in, the hearing room detonated, like glass shattering under a hammer. Words ripped open the air with the violence of a gunshot, as Donald Trump's voice boomed, ordering security to remove Representative Jasmine Crockett. $2 million of taxpayer money had already been wasted on theatrics leading to this moment. But the greater cost was human. Veterans waiting for medicine, single mothers waiting for housing checks, classrooms stripped of supplies. Was the nation about to witness another silencing of truth, or the unmasking of the man who believed volume could bury evidence? The walls seemed to breathe as the order echoed. The marble whispered old secrets, remembering past trials where lies once tried to suffocate justice. The air itself bled tension, thick and metallic, as if democracy's pulse was under siege. Every spectator leaned forward, every phone camera glared like an unblinking eye. Trump sat at the center, a smirk carved on his face like a blade, expecting compliance. Yet across from him sat Jasmine Crockett, steady as a surgeon before the first incision. Her stillness was more menacing than his command, her silence sharper than his roar. Security approached, boots scraping the stone like knives dragged across bone. Trump's lips curled in satisfaction, but Jasmine Crockett did not move. Her hand rested lightly on a thick folder, its corners worn, its edges heavy with truth. The folder seemed to breathe against her palm, its weight promising revelations that could slice reputations to ribbons. The guards hesitated, caught between duty and the unnerving calm of a woman who did not flinch. "Remove her," Trump barked again. But the words bounced against walls that refused to obey. The silence afterward had fangs. Every camera zoomed in closer. Every whisper online became a roar. Viewers at home clutched their phones, typing furiously, "She's not moving. She's holding something." Then Jasmine Crockett finally spoke, her voice surgical, precise, and impossible to interrupt. "Truth doesn't need your permission to exist." The sentence sliced through the chamber like a scalpel through silk, leaving Trump visibly rattled. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Teachers in Kansas texted each other mid-classroom. Parents in Detroit called family members to switch on the news, and veterans in Ohio clenched their fists in recognition. Social media feeds ignited, memes already sprouting around her single devastating line. Trump shifted in his chair, the first crack in his composure showing like hairline fractures in glass before a collapse. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound felt hollow, brittle, unable to match the weight pressing in from the room itself. The air did not release him. The walls leaned closer, whispering their judgment. Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, fingers brushing the folder that seemed to pulse with anticipation. The paper inside whispered like dry leaves, ready to ignite into fire. Her eyes locked on Trump with surgical precision, promising dissection rather than debate. The silence stretched, merciless, waiting for the first cut. The silence had not even settled when Jasmine Crockett lifted the folder, its weight dragging the air down like an anchor. Every eye tracked the movement. Every phone camera magnified the moment. She laid the folder flat on the table, with a sound that sliced through the chamber like steel on stone. The papers inside shifted, whispering like ghosts, impatient to speak. Trump straightened, smirk faltering, sensing the weapon about to be drawn against him. Jasmine Crockett opened the folder slowly, each page sliding free, with the texture of sandpaper, deliberate and punishing. She raised the first sheet and held it high, so that the overhead lights turned the paper translucent, veins of ink glowing like arteries carrying blood. The silence was shattered by her words. $2.5 million meant for disaster relief was siphoned away. Do you know who paid the price? Let me introduce you. A video screen flickered alive behind her. The face of Maria Sanchez, age 37, filled the room. Her home in Corpus Christi had collapsed after a hurricane, her children sleeping in a neighbor's basement. Her voice cracked through the speakers. "We were promised help. We never saw a dollar. My kids still sleep on floors. The sound of her sobbing cut deeper than any statistic could. Gasps surged through the audience. Veterans in the gallery shook their heads, mothers wiped tears from their cheeks. Online, timelines lit up with Maria's face. Her words already being clipped, subtitled, shared in real time. Trump tried to interrupt, waving a hand dismissively. This is irrelevant, she's cherry-picking. Jasmine Crockett's reply was as calm as a blade resting on skin. Irrelevant is a word used by men who are terrified of receipts. She lowered the page to the table with surgical precision, as though placing a scalpel back on its tray. The crowd erupted in murmurs, the quote already echoing across the digital world. She turned to the next page. $1.8 million stripped from veteran housing funds. The screen changed again, showing Walter James, a 71-year-old Marine veteran. His voice, hoarse but steady, filled the chamber. I fought for this country. I sleep in my truck now because the money vanished. The weight of his words hung like lead. Trump shifted again, this time visibly unsettled. He tried another angle, mocking her tone. This is all dramatics, she's putting on a show. Jasmine Crockett's eyes never wavered. Justice doesn't scream, it documents. She slid the second page across the table, its corners catching the light like the edge of a blade. The air thickened with menace. Walls seemed to lean closer, listening, while the marble floor absorbed each word like a courtroom stenographer that would never forget. Phones buzzed across the country. A teacher in Milwaukee whispered to her students, "Watch this. This is history." A father in Dallas called his son over, pointing to the screen. "See, this is what truth looks like." The room bled tension, and Jasmine Crockett was just beginning to cut. The room was still reeling when Jasmine Crockett reached deeper into the folder, fingertips brushing pages that seemed to breathe with urgency. She pulled out a thick document sealed in a crimson tab, the paper edges rough, like bark peeled from a wounded tree. The silence sharpened as she held it aloft. Cameras zoomed. Spectators leaned, and even the guards forgot their orders. "This," Jasmine Crockett began, her tone surgical, "is the contract where $3.5 million, meant for rebuilding schools, was diverted into vanity projects. 3 schools closed their doors. 900 children displaced. And here is the proof." She snapped the seal, the sound like bone splitting. The paper unfolded in her hands, its signatures glinting under merciless fluorescent light. Trump flinched as the camera screens magnified his name, scrawled in thick black ink. Behind her, the screen lit up with a new face. 12-year-old Malik Johnson, speaking from a cramped apartment, stacked with boxes of donated food. His voice carried both youth and despair. "My school closed last year. We don't have music anymore. We don't have sports. I sit in my living room, staring at a screen all day. I just want to be back in a classroom." His mother's hand tightened on his shoulder, her face wet with tears. The chamber groaned with the weight of it. Parents gasped. Children watching at home clutched their textbooks tighter. Teachers across the nation typed messages to each other in furious disbelief. Trump tried to seize back the stage, voice booming. "That's nonsense. These numbers are fake. This is a witch hunt, just like always." His fists pounded the table, the sound hollow, desperate. Jasmine Crockett lowered the contract onto the wood with surgical care, its presence radiating menace. Her eyes locked on Trump like a scalpel about to cut. Witch hunts don't come with notarized signatures. This is not drama. This is arithmetic. The line sliced him open. Social media detonated. Feeds filled with her words, stamped across memes, shirts, and digital posters within minutes. "Arithmetic doesn't lie," trended within seconds. Trump's veneer cracked further. His smirk shriveled into a scowl. He jabbed a finger at her, voice cracking under its own strain. "You're nothing but a performer, a liar with props." Jasmine Crockett remained still, the calm in the storm. She picked up the next page, paper heavy as a gravestone, and spoke with the chill precision of a surgeon announcing a prognosis. You call these props. Families call them eviction notices. Children call them lost futures. Veterans call them cold nights. Do you want to keep calling them props? Or should we keep reading? The chamber erupted in murmurs, like a tide swelling against stone. Protesters outside the building began chanting, their voices carrying through the windows. A young man, live streaming on the steps, whispered to his audience, "She's dismantling him piece by piece. This isn't a debate, it's an autopsy." And Jasmine Crockett had only just begun, slicing through the corpse of corruption. Before the echoes faded from the protesters' chants outside, Jasmine Crockett lifted a thick leather-bound binder from beneath the folder. Its surface was scarred, the edges frayed, as if truth itself had fought to break free from its prison. She stood, the chair scraping behind her like a blade dragged across marble, and the room seemed to contract, walls bending inward, air pressing down like a storm. She opened the binder with slow precision. Pages fluttered, heavy and grainy, whispering as though reluctant to expose the sins they carried. She spread them across the table in a fan, each sheet glinting under surgical light, each signature pulsing like a heartbeat on life support. $5 million rerouted, she announced, her voice steady but cold. Money meant for emergency hospital generators in rural towns. Towns like Pine Hollow, where 17 patients died during a blackout because the machines failed. Their names are not props. Their deaths are not performance. Their families are watching right now. The screen behind her erupted into faces. Margaret Ellis, age 64, tears spilling as she described holding her husband's hand while the oxygen machine went silent. He fought cancer for 3 years. He survived the disease but not the dark, and we never got the backup power we were promised. Her sob tore through the chamber like glass cracking under unbearable weight. Trump's face drained of color, though he forced a sneer. This is just exploitation. She's parading grief for political gain. Jasmine Crockett lifted one document and snapped it down flat on the table so hard the sound echoed like a gavel. Her eyes narrowed. Exploitation is when a man steals millions while people suffocate in the dark. Documentation is when their signatures testify against him. The line struck like a thunderclap. Viewers at home clapped, some standing in their living rooms, others crying into their hands. Veterans watching from bars slammed fists on tables, shouting her words into the air. Trump leaned forward, voice rising into a desperate snarl. "You don't know sacrifice. You don't know leadership. You're just a noise in a suit." The air trembled as Jasmine Crockett slowly closed the binder. Her voice dropped to a blade's whisper. "Noise doesn't terrify you this way. Documentation does." The chamber exploded in gasps. Phones shook in trembling hands as people rewound the live stream to replay the moment. College students texted each other, "She just ended him." A grandmother in Atlanta told her granddaughter, "Remember that line. That's how history is written." Trump tried to laugh again, but his voice cracked, brittle as shattered glass. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hand, once steady, tapped the table in frantic rhythm, betraying panic. Jasmine Crockett leaned back, eyes locked on him like a surgeon deciding where to cut next. Her hands rested gently on the stack of documents that pulsed with silent menace. The silence now belonged to her, merciless and fanged, waiting for the final incision. The silence was suffocating when Jasmine Crockett drew the final document from the folder, a thick envelope sealed in wax, the color of dried blood. The paper quivered in her hand, as if truth itself had waited too long to breathe. The room leaned in with her, the lights merciless, slicing shadows across every face. Trump shifted uneasily, his bravado collapsing in fragments, his hands trembling just enough for cameras to catch. She broke the seal with a slow, tearing sound, like flesh ripped open. From inside, she pulled a single sheet, heavier than the rest, stamped with government insignias that bled authority. She held it high, letting the silence sharpen, then spoke. $10 million, she said, every syllable surgical. 10 million stripped from disaster housing programs, diverted to shell companies tied directly to your political allies. That money could have rebuilt 1,000 homes. Instead, 1,000 families still sleep in shelters, their lives scattered like debris after a storm. This is not speculation. This is your signature. The document glared under the lights, Trump's name unmistakable. His face paled, his lips moved, but no sound came. The screen filled again, this time with David and Laura Kim, parents of 3, speaking from a crowded shelter in Houston. Their daughter clutched a stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide. Laura's voice cracked. "We were told help was coming. We're still waiting. My children think this shelter is home now." David added, $10 million could have saved us. Instead, we have nothing. The chamber fractured into cries and gasps. Some clutched their mouths, others shouted in anger. Outside, protesters screamed louder, their chants now shaking the windows. Social media detonated in real time, hashtags turning to digital firestorms. Jasmine Crockett's words stamped across screens. 1,000 families stolen. Trump slammed his fist on the table, desperation breaking him open. "Lies! All lies! You're nothing but a fraud!" His voice cracked like breaking timber, his body leaning forward in panic. Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. She placed the document flat, sliding it toward him like a surgeon sliding a chart toward a doomed patient. Her voice was low, calm, unyielding. "You don't steal money. You steal time. Time from families. Time from veterans. Time from children who will never get their childhoods back. And that theft, Mr. Trump, is written in your hand." The words detonated in the chamber. Trump's face twisted, his mouth opening, but nothing coherent emerging. Only fragments of rage. His body slumped back into his chair, sweat pouring. The smirk dissolved into ruin. Phones across the nation shook with vibrating alerts as media outlets broke the headlines simultaneously. Crockett unveils $10 million theft with Trump's signature. Families in shelters wept as they watched. Veterans raised their glasses in bars. Teachers projected the live stream onto classroom walls so children could see a government finally held accountable. The walls themselves seemed to exhale, the marble breathing relief as the truth bled into daylight. Jasmine Crockett gathered the papers with surgical calm, each page whispering final judgment. The autopsy of corruption was complete. The only thing left was the verdict.